In the headlines, Korea's major parties are set to pass the $340 billion budget bill for next year. This will be the first time for the parties in Korea to pass the budget bill by the legal deadline in 12 years. Rescuers resumed their search for the 52 people missing from a South Korean fishing boat that sank off the coast of Russia's Far East. And in response to the Ferguson riots in the U.S., President Obama announces a 3-year, $263 million package to reform police training and to install body cameras on officers.
Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News live from Seoul. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Tae-ri. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin at the National Assembly as it's expected to pass a 2015 budget bill worth some $340 billion within the next half an hour or so.
Right. And so it has taken hours of a consensus throughout the day and really days leading up to this. They're really down to the wire now. And lawmakers are really trying to work through some differences they've had with an attached tax bill with the budget. So now we're going to connect to our Ji Myung-gil, who's on the line at the National Assembly. So, Myung-gil, let's talk about this budget bill. It's largely expected to pass. How has the money been allocated for next year?
Yes, Sean. Well, lawmakers are on the verge of passing the 2015 budget bill after weeks of review among the two main rival parties. As for what's inside the bill, well, the government has decided to allocate more than $100 billion to welfare and $48 billion to education. A large portion of the budget pie was allocated to welfare and education spending to better assist Korea's elderly population and to provide free childcare programs for children from ages 3 to 5. Next year's $340 billion budget is a 5.5% increase or $17.8 billion higher than this year's. Apart from the revised budget bill, lawmakers also passed tax-related bills such as increasing the price of tobacco and giving tax breaks to companies that increase investments, wages, and dividend payments.
Now, speaking of the new parliamentary law, it's actually helped the National Assembly this time to really push along the budget by the legal deadline. What significance do you think does this hold?
Right, Cherry. The fact that Parliament has reached this point in passing the budget bill by the legal deadline marks a possible first in 12 years. Under the new parliamentary law, lawmakers had the duty to pass the budget bill by the deadline, or else the government's drafted version of the bill would pass the plenary floor automatically. Today's pending passage of the budget bill will hold great significance as Parliament can prevent tug-of-war scenarios that lawmakers had to go through in the past, trying to pass the following year's budget at the end of the year. But opposition lawmakers have voiced concerns that although they reached this legal deadline, the two parties were short on time to thoroughly review all the budget bill. This has been Ji Myung-gil from the National Assembly.
And moving on to other news, the search continues in icy waters for 52 crewmen who are still missing after a Korean-operated trawler went down in the Bering Sea off Russia's far eastern coast on Monday.
Only 8 were rescued initially, with 1 confirmed dead. And with no good news from overnight rescue operations, as hope is fading for more survivors. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
Korea's foreign ministry said Tuesday morning that no more people had been rescued overnight. Around the time of the sinking on Monday afternoon local time, 8 people on a small life raft were rescued by a nearby ship, 1 Russian, 3 Filipinos, 3 Indonesians, and 1 Korean. But the Korean crewman later died of hypothermia. Officials say the crew of the Orion 501 was made up of 35 Indonesians, 13 Filipinos, 11 Koreans, and 1 Russian. 52 people are still missing. Rescue operations are said to be ongoing, but weather and water conditions are making search efforts very difficult. The owner of the trawler, Sajo Industries, says that while the exact cause of the sinking is not yet known, it's believed that the boat began to list sharply after high winds and choppy waters caused seawater to flood its storage holds. The boat, built in 1978, was bought by Sajo Industries from a Spanish company in 2010. Industry experts say vessels that have been in operation for more than 20 years are at greater risk of sinking than newer ones. The Arirang 501 left Korea's southern port city of Busan in July to fish for pollock in the Bering Sea. The boat was scheduled to return to Busan this month. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye launched a committee earlier this year to better brace for the costly process of unifying the two Koreas, checked up on the progress made so far. She made a point during Tuesday's meeting to highlight the need to improve the human rights situation in North Korea and what role that would play in unification. Choi Yoo-sun reports.
President Park Geun-hye says North Korea's human rights situation must improve for the future of a unified Korea. Meeting with a unification preparatory committee for the third time since it launched this year, President Park emphasized how important it was for the North Korean people to maintain their physical and mental health in achieving a happy and successful unification of the two Koreas. While Pyongyang's repeated provocations and nuclear ambitions have kept the two sides from renewing dialogue, Seoul has made attempts to improve ties through non-political cooperation and launched a committee to better prepare for unification. Referring to the upcoming 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule and the division of the two Koreas, President Park said it's an important time to move toward developing inter-Korean ties and bringing out meaningful change from North Korea. She then asked the committee members to appeal to South Koreans and the international community about the urgent need to unite the two Koreas. The committee, for its part, said it will hold a hearing early next year to establish a charter on unification. It then laid out plans for the coming year, from developing a manual on a unified Korea's economic system to encouraging the North to participate in President Park's peace initiative in Northeast Asia. Comparing unification preparation to Koreans' use of various ingredients and paste to spice up dishes, President Park urged participants at Tuesday's meeting to approach unification with patience, as it can only be achieved successfully when all the hearts and minds of Koreans come together. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
In a move sure to draw the ire of North Korea, a Christmas tree will be set up near the western inter-Korean border. The Defense Ministry approved plans by a local religious group to put up a 9-meter-tall tree at Egibong in Gimpo, west of Seoul. The prior tower, taken down this past October, had long been subject to threats by North Korea during the Christmas season. Pyongyang views it as a propaganda tool as the tree lights were visible from the north. Following the latest cyber attack on Sony Pictures, the FBI has warned American businesses to beware of malicious codes. As for the Sony Pictures incident, North Korea is speculated to be the culprit, as the studio's soon-to-be-released film, The Interview, talks about assassinating the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un. Our Shin Se-min reports.
Security breached. 5 movies produced by Sony Pictures have been leaked online after the company's computer system was hacked in late November. It's estimated to have cost Sony Pictures tens of millions of dollars in financial damages. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has notified U.S. businesses to beware of new destructive malware and cyber attacks. In a confidential flash, an FBI warning issued Monday provides details on the malicious software and called on businesses to protect their information systems and limit access to their databases. The report says the malicious software overwrites all data on computer hard drives. The FBI spokesman, however, declined to comment on whether this flash software was used in the cyber attack on Sony. Employees of Sony Pictures found themselves logged out of their computers last week. They turned them on to find the phrase, "hacked by GOP," or the Guardians of Peace, which has claimed responsibility for the attack. Sony said the theft of content was considered a criminal matter and that they're working to address the issue. There's speculation that the attack could be linked to North Korea, as Sony Pictures produced The Interview, an upcoming comedy film that centers around a CIA plot to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The North has so far refused to deny involvement in the attack. Shin Chae-min, Arirang News.
Earlier this year, the U.S. state of Virginia passed a law that requires new school textbooks to refer to the body of water between Korea and Japan by the name officially recognized by both countries. Previously, only Japan's imperialist legacy was reflected in the books. Our Hwang Sung-hee had a chance to sit down with one of the U.S. lawmakers who helped to lead this historic change. Take a look.
When they saw that name designated in a way that brings back those historic inaccuracies, they realized that the best thing that they could do is ask for a redress of this body here.
He led the efforts to let the students in the U.S. state of Virginia know that the body of water between Korea and Japan is not only known as the Sea of Japan, but also the East Sea. Despite criticisms that a global issue had waded into local politics and into school textbooks, Virginia House District Delegate Mark Kim said the bill was a domestic issue.
Korea and U.S. is building and increasing our trade opportunities. If you have Virginia kids growing up and possibly having a job that allows them to travel to Korea, we want them to understand there are some disputes. We don't want them walking in blindly and finding out that they're taught one version when they're dealing with Korean business people.
The bill, which was passed and signed into law earlier this year, was a small victory for Korea in a centuries-old feud with Japan. Kim does not plan to introduce more history-related bills, but says a similar campaign can always be replicated.
So many issues that we deal with in America, we need Korean American voices there, and right now that's not being heard. So I'm hoping that this experience of passing the EC bill will give them that motivation and a roadmap to say this is exactly what we want to do. We want to go to our government and redress our grievances with them the way the Constitution promises it.
The Korean community is growing. I think its number is somewhere around 2 million. How can we get a more prominent presence in the U.S.?
We don't have anybody in Congress that's advocating for peace, reunification, hostility to be withdrawn in North Korea, human rights issues that are happening. Nobody who's of our background speaking on those issues in Washington, D.C. So I think unless and until we have Korean Americans that are affecting our policies at the national level, I don't think we can say that we're quite there yet.
Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Global oil prices, after being on a downward spiral in recent months, posted their biggest daily gain since 2012 on Monday. The rebound comes amid concerns that oil prices may have started to hurt U.S. shale gas production. Our Hwang Jie has the details.
U.S. oil rebounded from a 5-year low, rising more than 4% on Monday. Crude finished up nearly $3 or 4.3% at $69 per barrel. That marks the largest daily gain since August 2012. The benchmark Brent crude also jumped roughly 3.5% to finish at $72.54 per barrel, its biggest one-day gain in 2 years. The rise in international oil prices comes as investors look for a bottom price after OPEC decided not to trim production last week. U.S. and Brent crude have dropped for 5 straight months, the longest downward spiral since the 2008 financial crisis. The prices have lost 40% compared to their peak in June. But the market is rising back up as the U.S. shale oil industry responds to the tumbling oil prices. In late Monday afternoon trading on Wall Street, shares of shale energy companies extended their losing streak for a second consecutive session, dropping around 5%. OPEC's dominance in the oil market has been under threat in the face of growing output from Russia and shale oil production in the U.S. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
And this just in, the 2015 budget bill that was being hotly debated at the National Assembly passed before its legal deadline of midnight, and therefore everything is set for next year in terms of government spending. And moving on with the news, meanwhile, the fall in oil prices is expected to be a boon for industries like airlines. Our Kim Min-ji explains.
Tumbling oil prices and the rise of direct purchasing from overseas could give Korea's struggling airline industry the shot in the arm it needs. The decline in crude prices has led to an overall reduction in costs for airlines, which means they are able to entice customers with cheaper fares and cut rates for cargo deliveries. Korean Air, the nation's #1 carrier, says it has saved nearly $120 million this year thanks to the drop in oil prices. Jet fuel on the Singapore market was selling at $126 a barrel early this year, but its value had plunged by around a third to $87 as of the end of November. Korea's low-cost carriers have also been benefiting as fuel expenses account for 45% of their overall operating costs. Falling oil prices also means lower fuel surcharges, which in turn means more passengers and more cargo. According to Korea's transport ministry, nearly 7.5 million passengers took flights in, out, and around Korea in October. That's more than 15% higher than the same month last year. Cargo volume also jumped 5% over the same period. And with increased shipments due to the shopping holiday known as Black Friday, Korean Air has deployed an additional 26 cargo planes. However, industry watchers warn that oil prices and exchange rates can quickly turn on their head, especially given the ongoing uncertainties in some advanced economies. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama has called for greater federal spending to equip police officers in the U.S. with body cameras following the shooting death of the unarmed black teenager Michael Brown.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, this plan looks like it's going to cost a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars over the next couple of years. What's the long-term goal for this ambitious plan?
Well, according to the White House, this new initiative aims to tackle the growing divide between police and the communities they seek to serve amid the fallout from the racially charged protests in Ferguson, Missouri. Obama says he's deeply invested in making sure these measures are realized, which also includes reforms for law enforcement agencies across the nation. Our Lee Ji-yoon has more.
Inside the White House on Monday, President Barack Obama held a series of meetings focused on what can be learned from the situation in Ferguson.
When any part of the American family does not feel like it is being treated fairly, that's a problem for all of us.
America continues to react to the Ferguson grand jury decision to not indict white police officer Darren Wilson and the fatal shooting of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. In response, President Obama is calling for a 3-year, $263 million spending package to reform policing in the U.S. This package would include expanded police training programs with $75 million set aside to buy 50,000 body cameras for police officers. The president is also setting up a special task force chaired by a police commissioner and a university professor.
They are going to co-chair a task force that is not only going to reach out and listen to law enforcement, community activists, other stakeholders, but is going to report to me specifically in 90 days with concrete recommendations, including best practices for communities where law enforcement and neighborhoods are working well together.
Those at the meeting said the president seemed serious about bridging deeply rooted divisions. The NFL said Monday that it will not punish the St. Louis Rams players who on Sunday walked onto the field with their hands raised, mimicking those who protested the Michael Brown shooting with hands up, don't shoot gestures. The St. Louis Police Officers Association said the gesture was, quote, tasteless, offensive, and inflammatory. Lee Ji-yoon, Arirang News.
And switching gears now, there's a new ride-sharing app taking over New York City, and it's tailored just for women. Since launching this past October, She Taxis or She Rides has faced overwhelming demand as it solely matches female drivers with female passengers. The mobile service has been hailed for its safety and convenience while receiving support from taxi call centers. The company's founder, Stella Mateo, says of the 600,000 taxi rides taken every day in New York City, about 60% are hailed by women. However, less than 3% of available drivers in the metropolitan region are female. And turning to Japan, official campaigning for the general election has kicked off across the country, with the state of the economy at the forefront of the upcoming vote. A host of opposition party candidates took to the campaign trail on this Tuesday in preparation for the December 14th vote. They're attempting to seize control of the lower house of parliament, but few expect Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to lose his grip on power.
I had high expectations for the new government when the administration changed to the Democratic Party, but was later disappointed. Though I admit they had a difficult situation due to the March 11th earthquake, I don't think the opposition has the power to retake the government this time.
Abe is hoping to shed the weight of a series of financial scandals that have hit his cabinet over the past couple months, while at the same time seeking a fresh mandate for his struggling Abenomics policies. And finally, in Europe, the American fugitive Edward Snowden has received one of Sweden's highest awards after exposing the extent of government surveillance in the U.S. and its reach across the world. Often referred to the alternative Nobel Prize, the Right Livelihood Honorary Award was established in 1980 to support those offering answers to the most urgent challenges in society. The former CIA and National Security Agency contractor accepted the award on Monday during a ceremony at the Swedish Parliament. Other laureates included Asma Jahangir from promoting human rights in Pakistan and Bill McKibben from the U.S. for his work on climate change. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Che with Tuesday's Sports Rundown. World Football Governing Body FIFA announced the shortlist for this year's Ballon d'Or, and on it were three big names: Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, and Manuel Neuer. Portuguese superstar Cristiano Ronaldo has the opportunity to make it two in a row and third total after taking home the honor last year. Another mainstay, four-time Ballon d'Or winner, Lionel Messi, lands on the shortlist for the 8th straight year. Meanwhile, Manuel Neuer, Germany's sure-handed net protector, will attempt to become the first goalkeeper to win it since 1963. And now to KBL basketball. Heading to Incheon for the lone KBL matchup between the ET Land Elephants and KCC Aegis. ET Land takes the early lead, but KCC, with center Ha Seung-jin back in the lineup, wrestles it back by halftime. And the Aegis in the fourth quarter stays on the attack behind Kim Ji-hoo for the huge win to snap the Elephants' winning streak at 6, as well as their own 9-game losing streak. And turning to pro volleyball in the V-League, over in Gumi, the LIG Graders played host to the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers. And the Graders show life, but the Skywalkers fight back to win the first and second sets. In the third set, the Skywalkers, having the force behind them, dismantled the Graders to get the victory and for some space between them on the standings. And going to the NBA, the Philadelphia 76ers are on the verge of history, but it's not the part of history that any team wants to be in. And dropping to the San Antonio Spurs at home, the 76ers lost their franchise-worst 17th straight game to start the season. Only 3 other teams have done it before, and of those 3, the 2009 to 2010 Brooklyn Nets went 0-18 before finally getting a win. Now they'll look to stop the losing streak against the Minnesota Timberwolves on Wednesday. And that wraps it up for now. Your weather's up next. Have a good night.
Hello and happy Tuesday. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the latest weather forecast. So it's starting to feel more and more like winter, and today was another brisk cold day under partly cloudy skies. So far, 19.5 centimeters of snow fell in Jeollabuk-do province, and this is no surprise as heavy snowfall advisories have been issued for some regions, and up to 10 centimeters is expected for parts of the central regions. We also have showers forecast. About 5 to 10 millimeters should fall over both Chungcheong-do provinces. Rain and snow will continue to fall through tomorrow evening, so make sure to dress warmly when heading out. On to Wednesday's readings. Seoul will mix it to 1, Gwangju hits 5, Busan reaches 8. On to other regions, Dokdo reaches 4, Mount Kumgang remains colder. That's all the updates I have for you now. I'll see you soon.
And that's the primetime news for this Tuesday. Thanks for watching. I'm Kang Chae-ri.
And I'm Sean Lim. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.